Hello and welcome to a quick operating guide to lovely campervans. To start off with the fridge, the van essentially works off three modes of energy, which is the leisure battery, two separate batteries, leisure battery and the cab battery, gas, and then if you're hooked up onto the electricity. So the fridge here, if you are travelling, you set it to picture of the battery, but then when you arrive somewhere, you want to be putting it either, if you're hooked up to the mains electricity, you put it onto that, and then if you're not, then you've got the gas option, which you position that lever down there, and then with these two, you press this one in and clicker it at the same time, and you hear a little poof, and then there's a little indicator here, and you'll see that the red line starts going into the green, and once it's in the green, I've still got my finger held on the gas, I take it off and that red thing has stayed in the green, so it means you're up and running on the gas. To the toilet and wet room, there is a basin here. The lid is sometimes a little bit tricky. There is an art to it, which is usually to stick that up there and then push the mirrors back. Sometimes it doesn't hold, but hopefully they will. The toilet, you come in, you push the little grey lever to the back of the vehicle, which opens up the pan. You do your business, you press your flush and then close it. There's a little indicator on here which starts going red when the toilet starts filling up, and I'll show you in a minute how to empty it from the outside. The shower is self-explanatory. It's a little douche shower which hangs up there. There's a curtain, and there are a few poppers around which just stop it from attacking you. The only thing I would add is that if you have a shower, then it's best to mop up the floor afterwards, otherwise you're always traipsing through wet floors. Just to add to the toilet, there should be some chemical toilet stuff. Just put in about half an egg cupful of this, or is the green more eco-friendly, every time you clean the toilet, or empty it and then clean it. Hob, 3-burner hob, there's a grill, an oven, and that's self-explanatory. You either put it on the grill or the oven, and there's a little clicker there which will only work if the actual electricity, well, the battery's on, the computer bit is on. There is underneath here, there's some pots and pans. The rest of the plates, etc., can be found in various different drawers. There should be everything that you need, including plates, cups, bowls, knives and forks, and all the pots and pans, openers, etc. Now, we do try to check them every time, but forgive us if they're not always clean. We do rely on everybody cleaning them after they've used it and putting it back the way that they found it. So hopefully that works for everybody. There is a television. They're all slightly different maybe in some of the vans. This one, you actually have to plug this one in and then put the aerial in to the sockets which are around the side. And every time you arrive somewhere, you do need to retune it. So you go to source, which should be television, and then setup, and do auto setup. Everywhere you arrive, you generally have to do that. There's a bit of storage under the seat here, otherwise main storage is in here. It's a bit of hanger space. Otherwise, generally under the bed when the bed comes out, and on top of the bed are good places to store. I also recommend that put stuff on the bed, and when you arrive somewhere you might choose to actually put it in the space, sort of the footwells and the sort of redundant space that you find behind the chairs. The windows all have blinds and fly nets as well. Apart from the two side windows and the windscreen, where you'll find on this shelf here some blinds which have little suckers on, so you just stick them onto the windows. All can move slightly that way or that way, and you'll see here there's a couple of brackets. Now underneath there are some brackets which you just slide towards you, slide that one towards you, and then it's just simply lift it up. In terms of driving, it drives pretty easily. There's not too much to note on the dashboard. There's a little button here which you can lock from inside at night or whenever you're inside. There's a USB port here, and there's also one underneath here. They work only if the ignition's on, and the one down here works if the radio's on, and if you don't want the radio on, you just turn it down, turn the volume down. There is some Bluetooth which links up to the stereo, and also there is this funny thing where you can just put your phone in there, just a holder. I know it looks clunky, but actually it's quite exciting. There is a breakdown cover number there. Just phone that and quote either the registration or the chassis number. I'll show you the chassis number later, and indeed call us. Two captain's chairs move around. Now you always need to pull them forward with the bar here, and then turn them. There's a little catch on the side here. When it's locked in the other way around, you just pull that and then swing it around. But always remember to, whichever direction they're facing, that you put it forward. Otherwise it hits the handbrake and various other bits and pieces which can break. And now the more complicated bits. This is a little computery thing which just turns everything off or on. The next button along, once you're on, it's got a picture of a battery and an L. That's your leisure battery, and just shows you in increments of 20% how full it is. Likewise, this has got a V, that's your van battery, and increments of 20%. Just to be noted that they're separate, the batteries, so if you run down your leisure battery, you will still be able to drive off because it wouldn't have run down your van battery. They do automatically both charge up once you're going, and even if your leisure battery runs down, you can always put the engine on in standstill for 20 minutes and it should top the leisure battery up to a large extent. This is your water pump, and if I turn that on, you can hear it charging up the system. If you hear that noise, apart from when you just turned it on, just keep an ear out for a little noise like that, because actually it means that there may well be something wrong. One of the pipes may be leaking or something like that. I mean, it rarely happens, but if you just hear that constant noise, just turn it off. Actually, indeed, it's probably best just to generally have the water pump off, and just use it as and when you need it. So now it's stopped, so actually it's all primed to go, and ready. This button here is your water tank, and again increments of 20%, so it's 80% full. However, it's to be noted that rarely does it climb to the dizzy heats of 100%. It's about either 90 or 100 litres, but it's surprising how much water you do get through. It runs out of water long before it does gas or any other kind of energy. There are various different lights, outside and inside. There's another light here, which is, not all of them have, but that one does. Now this is the hot water and central heating. So if I press it, it's now on. And it's best just to keep to these icons here. You'll see a campervan with a thermometer on it, that's the central heating, and then thermometer with water, that's the hot water. Next one along is a gas or electricity, that's the means of how you're going to heat the hot water or central heating. And then the next one is just how fast the hot air for the central heating is going to come through. And the top level just shows you what's happening at the moment. So that little flame actually indicates the central heating is on. It's got a picture of a gas bottle. It's actually we're using gas at the moment, and the fan's on. So if I wanted to put the central heating on, I would twiddle this little knob just one click over till it starts flashing over the central heating. I press it, and then I literally just turn it to the desired temperature, press it, and that's set the temperature. The next one along is your hot water. I twiddle the icon so it's flashing, and then I press it and it's off. It's either eco, hot or boost. I'm going to turn it off for the moment because I always recommend not to have the hot water and central heating on at the same time, because it's quite a lot of ask, but I'm sure it's absolutely feasible. And then I'm going to twiddle it to the next icon. Now that's just how you're going to heat that water. It's either gas, mix or electricity. Gas, mix, electricity, as I twiddle it from left to right. Electricity is if you're hooked up, and there's a little sign here which shows I am hooked up at the moment. It's got a plug socket, so if that doesn't appear, then it's because you're not hooked up. If I wanted to put it on the gas, I would move it from the electricity down to gas, press the gas, and that would be set. The mix we don't use, we're not totally sure what it's for. It's obviously a mixture of electricity. And the electricity 1 and 2, I believe, is electricity 2 is if you've got a very strong source, as in a campsite, and 1 if it's some rickety old neighbour's shed that you're plugged into. So those two are set, and then hot air, if you want it, it's just eco, high or boost, how fast you want the hot air to move it around the vehicle. The hot water would probably take about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from cold to piping hot. On gas, it takes slightly longer with the electricity. If you get more adventurous, there are other little, you can set it on a timer to come in the morning. That's pretty much it. Don't be overwhelmed by it. It does work very well, and it soon heats up the cab. Now, if for some reason or other there is a problem, just above the round nozzle here, in this space here to the left of that clock, there becomes a little triangle, a warning triangle. Now that means if that flashes up, it means there's a problem in the system. You can twiddle it down onto it and it will come up with the code. You can either phone us up, or in the manual, which is in the top of the cab here, it will list actually what the problem is. But hopefully that doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen, but occasionally it does, and by all means do call us up. In actual fact, you can Google that number and it often says it's what your problem is. That's pretty much it. If you want to turn the whole system off, just put my finger on it for 5 or so seconds and it turns off. Likewise, if I want it, and you can hear it in the background actually, the combi heater is actually under the seat back there, and you can hear it whirring away when it's on. Likewise, when you turn it off, you hear it clicking off. So if I want to turn that back on, I just simply press that, and the settings are back to where they were. So I think I was on central heating and on gas at the moment. That's pretty much it. You do need to have this panel on for this one to be on as well. That's your diesel point. Now it should be full when it goes out, and it, in theory, comes back full. And also it goes out clean inside and out, and it comes back in the same state. And there is some charges if it doesn't. But you don't have to. Sometimes we realise it's tricky to clean it, but we do expect it back in that state. This is your water point. So that just comes off there. You put your hose pipe in, and when it starts overfilling, you know it's full. There's an awning. That's simply just the little hooky bit goes up into there, and you just turn it around and it comes out. These legs, there's a couple of different ones on different campervans. On this one, you just release that, and the leg then comes back into here and just sits in there. It is actually self-standing, so don't worry about it collapsing if you take the feet off it. The manufacturers do say that winds of more than 20 miles an hour, you shouldn't have it out, because it can break, so just be wary of that. But don't let it spoil your holiday. The back, the cable and hose pipe is kept in there. There is also some space there for bits and pieces. You can actually access it from up here. That's your leisure battery. You shouldn't need to use that. Your bed, literally just lift it up slightly, pull that out, and likewise there, pull those out, and then these go in the middle, and your bed's made. We do supply a mattress cover, so you can use that, and although it appears to have a little ridge here, it's when you're all asleep, when you're lying in it, it doesn't make any difference at all. It's actually pretty comfortable. There are a couple of carbon monoxide and fire alarms. Everybody tends to store their stuff underneath. Just remember with this door actually to close it before you actually close the door, otherwise it breaks the catch. This one, there's not any space in here because that's where your combi boiler is housed. In some of them the stick for the awning will be up here. Moving on to the other side, that's just your vent for the boiler. Press these two buttons here, that one and that one together, and this is your toilet. There's a little lever there, pull it up, and the whole thing just comes out really easily. I say that it comes out really easily because if there's any friction at all, it means that the pan in the toilet is actually open, so you need to go around to close it, and then this should come out. Don't yank it out. When this comes out, there are sometimes in some of them there are a couple of pipes, so just be a little bit wary that you don't pull them out with it. Toilet comes out, and then it's just a process of undoing the cap here and going to the campsite toilet emptying place, or indeed maybe a toilet if you're not at a campsite. Just empty it and then wash it through with a couple of litres of water a couple of times, and then you put the chemical toilet stuff either in here, half an egg cup full, or indeed in the down the toilet inside the shower place. And then just to be noted, actually, if you sometimes when people just keep an eye on this basin here. If you see any liquids in there, then it does need cleaning out, because unfortunately what happens sometimes is maybe the toilet gets too full and then you go over bumps, and it's some of them do leak out slightly. It shouldn't happen, but it does, and I would keep an eye out for that. And then it's just a simple method of just putting that back in there, sliding it back in. This is your drainage pipe. You just turn it that way to open it, to close it, or that way to open it. At the moment it's open. We generally have it open so the system just flows through and they don't get a build-up of swells. I would be wary about what you put down the sink. Don't put oils and stuff like that. Try and use a basin or something like that. It does come, otherwise it does, they're just holding tanks underneath. So this is your electric hookup point. You put the cable in there, and then when you want to pull it out, there's a little lever. You press that down, it just flips the cap on. Likewise, you just put the cap on top of there, and then in there, and then you're hooked up. This is the LPG point. Open that. There aren't millions of LPG garages, probably only 1 in 20 if that are LPG, but you can Google find my nearest LPG garage and it will tell you where they are. There is something in the instructions there, words to the effect of what the website is. When you do find your garage, it's always about 60p-ish, so it's about half the price of the petrol diesel, and it will be labelled LPG as you approach the garage. So there'll be diesel unleaded and then LPG. You know you've got the right one. Drive to the pump. There are instructions on the pump. Basically, it's a sort of pump which you then put on there. You twist it, and then there's a lock on it, and then you press the pump, a little button on the pump, and you start filling. It takes about 18 pounds worth, 18 pounds worth of LPG from empty to full, and once it starts getting full, it just slows down until it stops, and that's when you know you're full. There is a little indicator in the cab which just actually works with the ignition on. There it is, and it just shows you how full you are. You need to turn the ignition on, and then the little lights show up. It just tells you exactly how much you've got. I reckon that using the heating and the hot water, when I was in Scotland, we lasted, and the fridge and cooking, we lasted about just over a week in a full tank. So it does last quite a considerable amount of time.